The invitation arrived on a Tuesday in a cream-colored envelope with my name written in my sister's careful cursive, Rebecca Marie. Just my name, no and guest, no mention of a +1. I should have noticed then, should have understood that when you're being erased, they start subtle. I'm Rebecca Marie Foster, and I'm going to tell you about the day my family decided I was no longer worth the space I occupied. But before I do, if you've ever been cut out by the people who raised you, who you grew up with, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I want to know who's listening. The wedding was supposed to happen in June. My younger sister Charlotte's wedding to someone named David, whom I'd met exactly twice. This wasn't unusual. Charlotte had always kept her life private, separated from mine like we came from different families, which, in a way, we did. Our mother had 4 children. I was the oldest, then Charlotte, then the twins, Michael and Samuel. Growing up, we'd occupied the same house but different worlds. My mother, God rest her, she's been gone 3 years now, had always been closest to Charlotte, the pretty one, the compliant one, the daughter who didn't ask questions. I asked too many questions. When I was 16, I asked my father why his business partner's daughter had bruises on her arms that she kept covered with long sleeves during summer. That question led to a conversation that led to me testifying at a trial when I was 17. The business partner went to prison. My father stopped speaking to me for 2 years. He said I'd brought shame on the family name, that what happened in private should stay private, that I was a traitor. I learned early that some families reward silence like it's a virtue, but I couldn't do silence. There was something broken in my wiring that made me see injustice and speak it out loud, even when every person in the room was telling me to shut up. Even when speaking up cost me everything. So when I opened that wedding invitation and saw no +1, no phone call beforehand, just a formal card asking me to be present but never quite saying I was wanted, something in me recognized the pattern. The slow erasure. The quiet exclusion. I called Charlotte that evening. "Hey," she said, her voice careful and bright in a way that meant she'd been expecting this call and had prepared a mask to wear during it. "I got the invitation," I said. "Great. I'm so glad it arrived. The calligrapher made a few mistakes on other addresses, so I was worried." I cut through the politeness. "There's no +1." A pause. Not long, but long enough to hear everything she wasn't saying. "Well, we kept the guest list small. David's mother she has very specific ideas about the wedding, and she doesn't really know your situation. My situation. As if I were a medical condition. As if being unmarried at 32 was something shameful that needed explanation. Charlotte, are you asking me not to bring anyone?" Another pause. This one longer. I could hear her breathing, could picture her sitting in her apartment downtown, probably looking out at the city she'd moved to without telling me goodbye. "Mom said you'd probably be weird about coming. She said maybe you shouldn't." The words landed in a strange way, not as shock, because I'd suspected this, but as confirmation, as the moment when I finally understood that whatever family I thought I had was more fragile than a wedding invitation. "Mom's been dead for 3 years, Charlotte." "I know, but did you want me at this wedding or not?" I heard her sigh, and in that sigh was the sound of someone who'd rather be anywhere else, making any other decision. "I want you there," she said finally. The thing no one had ever said directly, only hinted at through omissions and careful word choices. I was uncomfortable. I was the problem. I was the thing that needed to be managed. "I see," I said. "You don't see," Charlotte said, her voice sharp now, finally honest. "You never see. You just charge ahead, doing what you think is right, never stopping to think about how it affects everyone else. The twins don't even want to come anymore because of you." "Because of me, how?" "Because you make everything a political thing. Because you can't just let things be." I set the invitation down on my coffee table. looked at it like it was something fragile that needed understanding. Charlotte, I'm going to ask you one more time. Do you want me at your wedding? The line went silent, and in that silence, I got my answer. I need to go, she said finally. Call me if you decide not to come. That would actually be easier for everyone. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there for a long time, holding my phone, staring at that cream-colored invitation, and I realized something that maybe I should have realized years ago. Some families don't deserve your loyalty. Some people who share your DNA haven't earned the right to call you family. I didn't respond to the invitation. Not yes, not no, just silence. The same silence I'd been offered my entire life. But I did something else. I called someone I should have called years ago. A person I'd spent most of my adult life avoiding because knowing them felt like betrayal. His name was Father Michael Sullivan, and he was my mother's younger brother. My uncle, though I'd only met him a handful of times because my father didn't approve of priests and my mother didn't approve of disappointing my father. Rebecca, he said when he heard my voice. It had been 8 years since we'd spoken. This is unexpected. I need your help, I said. And then I told him everything. Not just about the wedding, about the erasure that started before I could even talk, about how my father had conditioned the whole family to believe that my existence was something to be managed, about how loving me had become incompatible with family loyalty, about how I'd spent 32 years trying to fix myself, trying to become smaller, quieter, less visible, and it had never been enough. My uncle listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Rebecca, I want to tell you something, and I need you to really hear it. Your family is sick. Not in a way that requires medication, but sick in the way families get when they choose comfort over truth, when they choose the appearance of unity over actual love. I don't know what to do with that, I said. Then let me ask you something. If you could design your own life without worrying about their approval, what would you want? And that was the question that changed everything. Because I realized I'd spent so long living in opposition to what they wanted, I'd never actually figured out what I wanted. I was 32, and I had no idea who Rebecca was when nobody was watching. I don't know, I admitted. Then maybe it's time to find out, he said. And Rebecca? For what it's worth, I always knew you were the bravest one. 3 weeks before the wedding, Charlotte called again. We need to talk, she said. I almost didn't answer the call, but something made me pick up. Some small hope that maybe, finally, someone in my family would choose me. I'm listening, I said. David and I have been talking, and we want you there. At the wedding, I mean. We want you to be part of this, and I'm sorry I made you feel like… Charlotte, stop. Have you talked to David's mother? Has she changed her mind? A pause. No, but… Then nothing has changed except you've decided you want me there anyway. That's good. That's actually what family should be. But I need to tell you something. I took a breath. I'm not coming to your wedding. The silence that followed was absolute. What? She whispered. I'm not coming to your wedding. I repeated. I've decided to love myself more than I love the idea of being part of a family that only wants me when it's convenient, when the optics work, when no one has to be uncomfortable. Rebecca, please. No, I'm done pleading. I'm done trying to fit into a space that was never built for me. Your wedding will be beautiful without me. David will be happy. Your guests will have a perfect day, and no one will have to worry about whether my presence is making someone uneasy. Everyone wins. That's not fair, Charlotte said, and she was crying now. Fair? I said. You want to talk about fair? Let me tell you about fair. Fair is having a family that would choose you. Fair is being part of something that includes you even when it's hard. Fair is not asking the person you grew up with to spend her life apologizing for existing. I don't want fair anymore. I want real. I hung up before she could respond. That was May. The wedding was June 15th. My uncle called me the day before the wedding. Rebecca, I need you to do me a favor, he said. I'm officiating Charlotte's wedding tomorrow. My stomach dropped. Michael, I can't handle. I'm not asking you to come. I'm asking you to give me something to say during the ceremony. Something that might wake them up. What do you mean? I mean, he said, that I'm going to officiate this wedding in a way that your family has never experienced before. I'm going to tell them the truth. And I want your permission to speak it. I didn't know what he meant. I didn't ask for clarification. I just said yes. The next morning, I got a text from Michael with a live stream link. Watch this, he wrote. So I did. The church was beautiful. All the elements of a perfect wedding were there. Charlotte looked radiant in white lace. David looked nervous but happy. The flowers were stunning, the music was perfect, and the guests were all dressed in their formal best, ready to celebrate love. Michael stood at the altar in his ceremonial vestments, and for the first few minutes, the ceremony proceeded as expected. The readings, the vows, all the traditional elements. But then Michael stepped forward, and the energy in the church changed. Before I pronounce you husband and wife, he said, his voice cutting through the silence, I need to say something. I watched Charlotte's face go pale. I was not invited to this wedding by Charlotte, Michael continued. I was asked to officiate by the couple themselves, and I agreed because I love my niece and I wanted to witness her commitment. But I'm standing here today because I need to tell you something about love, because I don't think this family understands what it actually means. He paused, looking out at the guests. I'm going to tell you about my niece Rebecca. Some of you know her. Most of you don't, because my family has spent considerable energy making sure she remains invisible. Rebecca is a woman who, when she was 17 years old, risked her entire family relationship to speak truth about abuse she witnessed. She did that because she couldn't stay silent, because her conscience wouldn't let her. I felt tears streaming down my face as I watched this unfold on my screen. That girl, Michael continued, grew up in a family that punished her for being brave. That told her she was the problem for not being able to ignore injustice. That slowly, systematically erased her from their lives because she refused to shrink herself to make them comfortable. He turned to look directly at Charlotte. And yesterday, that woman, that brave, strong, extraordinary woman, told her sister that she wouldn't be here today. Not because she doesn't love you, but because she has finally learned to love herself. And my question for all of you is this: when did that become a crime? When did choosing yourself become the unforgivable sin in this family? I could see David's mother shift uncomfortably, could see the twins sitting rigid in their seats, could see my older brother Marcus pale and look toward Charlotte. I'm not going to marry you, Michael said to Charlotte and David, until I tell you this last thing. The room gasped. Charlotte looked like she might faint. I'm not actually going to leave. This is too important. But I need you both to understand something. If you marry each other and don't make a commitment right now to repair this family, to reach out to Rebecca, to tell her that you're sorry for making her feel like her existence was somehow shameful or inconvenient, then you're building your marriage on the same broken foundation that destroyed Rebecca's sense of belonging. And that will infect everything you do together. He stepped back. So I'm asking you publicly, in front of all these witnesses, will you commit to making things right, or are you going to repeat the pattern? What happened next was something I never expected. Charlotte walked out of her own wedding, right off the dais, still in her wedding dress. And she left. Guests stood up. There was chaos. The photographers stopped taking pictures. David looked completely lost. But then, Michael did something remarkable. He stepped down from the altar and walked to the back of the church where he stood with his arm outstretched, like he was offering not just sanctuary, but redemption. And one by one, people started standing, not leaving, but standing. David stood. My brother stood. And then slowly, even some of the guests stood. I watched Michael continue with the ceremony. He talked about love being not just about two people joining together, but about expanding your circle to include everyone who matters. He talked about forgiveness and responsibility. He talked about families having the chance to do better. The live stream cut to Charlotte outside the church, sitting on the steps, still in her wedding dress, crying so hard she could barely breathe. That's when my phone rang. Rebecca! Charlotte's voice was barely recognizable. Hi, I said. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I've been so terrible, and I'm sorry. Charlotte, no, let me finish. I just realized that the person you've been the entire time, the person who stands up even when it costs everything, that's not a flaw. That's not something I need to apologize for. That's exactly who I should have been standing beside this whole time. And I didn't. I chose them instead of you. I could hear her breathing, could hear her crying. Michael said something that just broke me open. He said if I repeat the pattern, it will destroy everything. And he's right. And I don't want to be the person who destroys things. I don't want to be like Mom and Dad. I want to be brave like you. I felt my own composure shatter. I want you here, she continued. Not at the wedding. The wedding is ruined anyway. But in my life, I want you to be my sister again, if you'll let me try. And that's when I understood something fundamental about families. They're not fixed. They're not decided by the people who raised you. Family is something you can choose. You can create, you can repair. Okay, I said. But we're doing this differently. We're building something new, something real. No more pretending, no more erasure. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The wedding was canceled officially. Charlotte sent notices to all the guests explaining that there had been a family emergency that required their attention. Sometime in the following week, Michael published an essay in a Catholic magazine about abuse within families and the responsibility of people in positions of power to speak truth. It went viral. My father, still alive at the time, never publicly acknowledged it, but my brothers did. And slowly, agonizingly slowly, my family began to change. It took years for trust to rebuild. Charlotte and I went to therapy together. David, to his credit, started going to therapy alone to understand how he'd allowed his mother to dictate terms about my inclusion. Michael became a mentor to me, and we developed the kind of relationship I'd always wanted with my uncle. The twins, Michael and Samuel, were the hardest to reach. But eventually, they started asking questions about why they'd been told to choose sides. They started understanding that loyalty to a lie is not actually loyalty at all. What I learned through that whole process is something I wish I'd known earlier. Families are only as strong as their willingness to tell the truth. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Not out of anger, but out of self-respect. Because when you do that, you're giving everyone the chance to choose differently. My family chose differently. Not quickly, not without pain, but they chose. These days, I'm 35. I'm in a relationship with someone named Morgan, who my family loves not because they have to, but because Morgan is genuinely wonderful, and they're genuinely grateful that I found someone who sees me. I'm working as an advocate for families recovering from dysfunction. I speak at universities about how silence enables abuse. And I'm happy, not in that manufactured way my family used to be, but in the deep-rooted, honest way that comes from knowing exactly who you are and being okay with it. Charlotte and David finally got married. A year later. It was a small ceremony with the people who actually wanted to be there. I was there. My brothers were there. Michael officiated again, this time with a smile and a sense of completion rather than crisis. And at the reception, my father actually came up to me. "I'm sorry," he said. Just those 3 words. I hugged him. We didn't repair everything in that moment. Damage that deep doesn't disappear overnight. But we took the first step. So here's what I want you to know. Your family is only the people who choose you, not the people who are obligated to because of shared DNA. And if you're experiencing a family that makes you feel invisible or ashamed or like your existence is somehow conditional, then you have permission to walk away. You have permission to love yourself more. And maybe, like my family did, they'll eventually understand what they lost and work to get it back. And maybe they won't. Either way, you will have protected the most important person in your life. You. If the story resonated with you, subscribe. Comment where you're watching from. And if you have a family story about standing up for truth, I want to hear it. Because the people who tell those stories are the ones changing the world.